Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today we have another amazing guest. So today's guest, she's an educator turned entrepreneur and the founder of Dream Chasers Club, a virtual community of kids and teens who are bold enough to dream big, challenge the status quo, and to be the change that they want to see in the world. She hosts virtual events, interviews, contests, and more to help this community of young people to network and inspire each other to even greater heights. She holds a BA from Harvard University, an MBA from Columbia Graduate School of Business, and she's been an educator for nearly 15 years. So a warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Patricia Clahar.
Thank you so much.
How did I do in the Clahar? I practiced before. I don't know.
That sound is spot on. Good job.
Was it? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm always a little bit wary about how I pronounce names, but not too hard. So I didn't make too much of a pig's ear of that one. So moving on swiftly. So this episode is called The Hands-on Entrepreneur for Kids, because this is uniquely your speciality. I know this. The listeners are going to find out about this in a moment. So, but I just, as I was delving into Patricia and finding out a little bit about Patricia before I speak to her, I know a little bit, but I didn't. But you've got all these other amazing things that Patricia has done in her background. So, so Highland Dancing, I like, which comes from Scotland, which is, I don't know how it found its. I'm just intrigued to how that entered your ether, and you became a competitive Highland dancer. So
yeah, I was, and real talk, I was definitely the only Black girl at those competitions. But the way that kind of like got onto my radar is in elementary school, I had a Spanish teacher, Mrs. Wilcox, and Mrs. Wilcox happened to be Scottish and was like into Scottish dancing. So, like when we had free time, like recess at the end of class, she would like, show us a couple of dance things. And, we loved it. We thought it was fun. Kids love to move around and stuff like that, compared to sitting in a chair, of course. Yeah. So we really kind of took to it. And she was like, if you guys want to start a little group, I can teach you at lunchtime. And we just thought it was the coolest thing that we were doing this little special thing. And we would leave the lunchroom with the teacher and get to do something special. And she started to really teach us how to do these dances. And then one day she was like, okay, you guys ready for a competition? And we were like, no, but she was like, yes, we're going to do this because you guys are skilled, you're talented, and you deserve to go to these competitions. So that's what she did. She encouraged us and she told us that we were good enough. And lo and behold, we went to the competitions and we were good enough.
Wow. So that's interesting as well. So there were other people doing, Highland dancing competitively in the States. It wasn't just you guys, it was others. Wow.
Yeah, this was like, I don't know if I would say it was a big thing, but there's definitely like this niche that, of these people that are like super into this Scottish dance culture, and they have these competitions all over the country all the time.
Fabulous. So it must have been really cool for her to get this dance, which you kind of associate with Scotland, which is the other side of the pond, over to kids in the US who were doing it competitively and sort of spreading the vibe of Highland dancing. So if I'm ever in New York and I see Highland dancing, I think of, is it Mrs. Wilcox?
Mrs. Wilcox, yes.
I think of her. So that was something that struck a chord with me, because my uncle was Scottish, so definitely struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
And also, you work for Def Jam.
Oh, yes. a lifetime ago, my goodness. But that was definitely a fun experience. It was like my second job out of college, I think. I was like 21 at the time, or 22 maybe. And it was just, it's as cool as you imagine that
Yeah.
something like that might be, like musicians and rappers walking around the hallway, and Jay-Z has an office at the end of the hallway, and Irv Gotti's got an office over there. And, I mean, it was fun. We got to go to parties, and, we got all kinds of CDs for free and stuff like that. I mean, all kinds of swag at a job like that.
Wow. That was probably kind of like sort of the heyday in terms of when there was a vibe. Lots of different things going on, a lot of different artists blowing up. Jay-Z obviously had the platform, Murder Inc., just Rockefeller. So it must have been, the vibe must have been insane.
Yeah, it was a really exciting time to be there because, like you said, all those little joint ventures like Rockefeller and Murder Inc. were like just starting to really become popular. So, I mean, it was kind of fun to watch that whole evolution of the music industry, but it was also right before digital just like decimated that whole old business model of the music industry and, kind of rebirthed into this new model that we live in now that's totally digital. So that was interesting too.
Okay. Yeah. To see that as well. Okay. Okay, cool. So so those were little things that I just thought, I didn't know that I was going to talk about these up until yesterday, but as soon as I found these, I thought, I've got to unearth these and find out a little bit of detail around these. So anyway, so this episode is around, your background in education and the things that you're doing now. And people are probably thinking, why is Paul referred to you as the hands-on entrepreneur for kids? I'll shut up and I'm going to let you explain what that means and how it came about.
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically that came about just kind of from this idea that I had based on experience of working with kids who are, starting businesses and doing these things, that, entrepreneurship really isn't about taking a class or reading a book or, something like that. There are resources out there like that can be helpful. But at the end of the day, you have to execute. Like, that's really the only way to learn how to do this and to be successful at it, is that you have to go out and you have to practice it. You actually have to start that business. You can't just read the book about starting a business and say, hey, I know how to start a business now, because you really don't. Right. In the book is just a lot of theory, but when you get down to the practice, things change. You know what I mean? And you have to kind of learn how to adapt on the fly, because unexpected things are always going to happen. Things that the book didn't mention, things that they didn't teach you in that class. You know what I mean? And then that's when you really learn if you have the chops to do this, because there's always something unexpected right around the corner and you're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it. So, that's kind of why I create this community that's not just about teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs, but just lets them network with each other and learn from each other and inspire each other to kind of do better or to collaborate and create things that they couldn't have created on their own. Because really, that's where the beauty of this experience comes from. It's not sitting in the classroom and talking about it or sitting on a Zoom call and talking about their business. It's like these connections that they make with each other and then actually going and building stuff together or helping each other to be more successful.
Really interesting. Loads of different things spring to mind, but for love of me, I can't remember who it was. But I heard somebody talk recently. I'll tell you who it was. I believe it was Sarah Blakely, the CEO, founder of Spanx, when she was talking about her journey. And I think she referenced that when she was at school, I don't think she was taught how to, you're educated, clearly, you got the textbooks, you're educated, but you're not taught how to think for yourself, because schools, that's not in the curriculum. They don't, free thinking and the ability to do something which isn't detailed in the textbook isn't there. So that's what Sarah Blakely's going to love this. You need to reach out to her after this.
maybe I should.
Absolutely.
But I agree. It's like this free thinking is not really something that's emphasized in a lot of traditional schools. And it's also often not rewarded in, the traditional school setting. Like a lot of times the kids that get rewarded are the ones who are able to do the thing that, people in the past did. It's not the kid who comes up with some interesting new idea and just pursues it because that's his passion. So I like to have the space where kids can be rewarded for that and can be celebrated for that.
Yeah, totally. Because you sort of touched upon an interesting point, because if you come up with entrepreneurial ideas which are outside the curriculum, is there a danger that kids could be seen as being, well, that's not in the curriculum, this is a bit Paul's a bit disruptive, he keeps on talking about wanting to have his own podcast, or maybe wanting to market products via that, different things. So is the vehicle that you have
Mhm.
a vehicle where kids are free to actually express themselves without being burdened by a rigid curriculum?
Yeah, I think that's really one of the biggest differences between, a traditional school setting and kind of the space that I create for these kids, is that it is 100% student-led, student-initiated, student-centered. I don't tell these kids what their goals are. I don't tell these kids what success looks like. That's for them to decide.
Okay.
I also don't tell them to keep going or to quit. Again, that's for them to decide. And those are whatever consequences come from it are theirs to deal with. That's real life. And that's what I'm really trying to help kids prepare for.
Yeah, absolutely. So how, so what is the setup? What is the framework? How do people find you, and what's the sort of the communication like amongst the kids? I guess at the moment we're in this pandemic, so I guess it's all virtual. So if you can expand upon that a little.
Yeah. And, it is kind of interesting that all of this did kind of spring up just before the pandemic hit. So virtual has been my model for basically the whole life of this business.
Okay.
But the way that people often find me or discover me is on social media. Instagram is like the hot spot. We have a lot of stuff going on Instagram. We have regular interviews with young dream chasers, entrepreneurs, performers, content creators, activists. All kinds of amazing kids. And like pretty much every week we have a live interview with one of these young people. And it's not just kind of an interview where we talk to each other, kind of like this kind of interview. I kind of look at those types of interviews more as like adult style interviews. But what I do with these young people is I have them teach me something that they do. So, if they're a dancer, they might teach me a dance. If they're an artist, they might teach me to draw. If they're a baker, they teach us how to bake something. And, we invite the viewers to participate and do this thing with us. So, if there's supplies needed, we let them know beforehand, and we all get together on Instagram Live and do something fun together while we learn about the amazing work that this kid or teen is doing, and, how they've been able to impact their community in the larger world.
Yeah, because I follow you on Instagram, and the content that you create with your kids is amazing. And it's so the kids that I guess getting involved, they must. What are their parents sort of for this? Are their parents saying, because it's outside the norm for them? Most parents are products like me that we've only been privy to the curriculum. So do they get it?
So, interestingly enough, I find that there's definitely a subset of parents that do get it, that this is something that is important, just as important as academics. And there's no reason why your kid can't do both. So, while there still may be a general status quo feeling that, what these kids are doing is a little bit unusual. There definitely are some parents who really encourage and foster this mindset in their kids, and have gone so far, in fact, that I know parents who have quit their 9-to-5 job because their kid or teen's business or organization has blown up so much that it actually needs their full-time support, and it can sustain them as a full-time job in place of what they were doing, which is like such an amazing story to hear, that a kid can create something that sustains their whole family. That's incredible, but you can never see something like that happen if you keep telling kids, no, you can't do it now. You got to wait till you're 18. No, you can't do it now. You're too young. We got to stop saying that so these kids can do more great things.
Well, that's interesting, because that is a mindset shift. Because if you've grown up and there's only one system, to get parents to sort of understand, actually, there are a number of ways of kids, realizing their potential. It doesn't have to be this. Kids do have amazing agile minds. let's give them the platform to actually use that and actually demonstrate that. So one of the reasons, there was a couple of reasons I reached out to you. One, because I loved what you're doing, but another one was, as I've spoken to loads and loads of different people on the podcast, you know, lots of people that have lots of experience, wonderful experience in whatever their field is. When we talk about, you know, do they think that a lot of the skill sets that we're talking about, like mindset and sort of entrepreneurship and resilience and all these really important qualities, do they think that we should teach these at school? They'll, like 100%, they always say yes. Yes, we need to do this early. And then I just stumbled across you, and you're doing this with kids early. So I guess, you know, industry, you know, we're going to have lots of kids, hopefully come from the Dream Chasers Club, that are actually have these skill sets embedded like early.
Yeah, 100%. You know, that's definitely a goal that, you know, I think this community has. And, you know, I just think that that mindset that, you know, again, is just something that I think is a little bit hard to draw from school, that mindset that, you know, failure is normal, failure is expected, failure is part of the process towards success, and it's not a good reason to quit.
Yeah.
You know, like, I feel like those are just so very different from kind of the impressions we get from school. Because, I mean, if you think about it, what I learned in school, I don't know about you or anybody else, I learned that failing is bad. Nobody wants to fail in school. If you fail, you get sent to the principal. That's a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, from a very young age, we internalize this, like, failure is something to avoid. But if you always avoid failure, you're avoiding every new experience. You're avoiding every new learning, you know, every new opportunity to learn something. And I think that when you think about business and commerce and what comes after school for these young people, that's really important for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
To embrace that, try, fall down, brush yourself off, try again.
Yeah, 100%. Because if you don't have that, you just don't know what to do when it happens, and you just feel you feel devastated. It's like, how do I respond for this? How can I face my friend? They all know it.
Yeah. And even I saw a post just recently on Instagram that said, if we don't teach kids, when we don't teach kids to embrace failure or tolerate failure, it actually leads them to be like anxious people, because the thought of failure is traumatizing, causes anxiety if you don't learn how to put it in perspective.
Absolutely. So the most of the kids that are, not most, I'm guessing all the kids that you're working with or a part of the Dream Chasers Club community have got a growth mindset, because they're always trying to be agile and think about how they're going to get whatever the goal is, whatever the overarching goal is. They need to get there, whether it's going left, right, or reversing and coming back again. They know what their goal is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the beauties of them having this community of other like-minded kids and teens is that, you know, growth mindset is simple, you know, in, you know, when you think about what it really means, but to live it every day when you're actually faced with that failure again and again, it's a challenge, you know, and to have people around you to remind you, yeah, it feels bad in this moment, but you're going to be fine tomorrow, and you're going to try again the next day when you have a new plan, you know? So even though we all know the growth mindset, sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, it's easy to kind of get down. And that's when you need that network. You need that community of like-minded people that are going to push you forward until you got that energy back to push yourself forward again. So that's why I love this group of kids.
Do you think then that the kids will get to a point where it's just innate, but they just, that ability to, when you hit a brick wall, because we always hit brick walls, and whatever we do, you know, periodically the brick wall presents itself. So will the kids, do you think, get to a point where the innate reaction is, there's a way around this?
Yeah, I do think that with practice and repetition, just like most of the things in our
Yeah.
life, it's a behavior. And if you do it repeatedly, it starts to become more habitual. You don't have to think about it as much. Now, is it 100% gonna, come through 100% of the time? Well, maybe no, but most of the time you'll probably start to get more into that habit of, okay, it's time to get up and try again. And when you can't, you're gonna have this secondary habit of, let me go tap into that network and talk to someone about how I'm feeling, and they're going to get you back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was talking to a lady just before Christmas, and she talked about how the pandemic had been devastating to her business, and how for a period of time it was like, well, difficult getting out of bed, difficult finding motivation, that type of thing. But then she tapped into her network, or she found the network to tap into. And the network she tapped into was a network of fellow-minded people. And what she was able to do was to use that network to just to sort of tweak what she was doing. And that network was pivotal, and her business now has changed, but it's flourishing, and she's doing things now that she didn't think her business would be doing. But she's so thankful for it, and she's flourishing. But what you're giving these kids is that ability to do this now at sort of a fraction of the age, which is amazing. So your background is obviously education. We've spoken about that. I mentioned that briefly at the top, but the entrepreneurial spirit that you're giving these kids, is that something where does that come from you? Is that something that exists within you?
That is something that existed in me, my parents' parents.
Okay.
So you got to understand, first of all, my family's from Jamaica.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Jamaican culture is all about hustling and having a side job and a side job for the side job and then another side job. Like, that's just what Jamaican culture is all about. So, my grandparents were entrepreneurs. My parents are currently entrepreneurs. And I do think that's where I got it from. Although, interestingly enough, my parents didn't want me to be an entrepreneur. Most people don't expect that. But here I am, because, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's amazing about what you're doing, you're sort of giving entrepreneurship just outside, not just within your family, outside your family now. You're creating an environment where, the far and wide can actually get involved in this. So we spoke previously around sort of the platforms and the sort of the events that you're doing. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the events?
Yeah, sure. So like I was mentioning, we have these things that go on Instagram pretty regularly, about once a week, so we can all just kind of connect and see, who's doing something cool this week and who's doing something cool next week. And in addition to that, I do other things to kind of inspire young people to, to be creative and to kind of, one of the things that I really try to encourage young people to do is kind of get away from being a consumer so much, and to kind of focus more on your creation skills and what can you put out into the world instead of just consuming all the time. So like right now I have a logo contest going on to help me create a new logo for my business, because I'm rebranding right now. So I kind of do contests like that kind of inspire kids to create or design or, something like that. Or sometimes challenges about ways that they can improve their own business or their own content on social media, things like that, which are kind of fun. And I try to do prizes and giveaways to get them a little excited. And then kind of the big culminating events that we do are what I call virtual fairs. And it's not a virtual party like a Zoom party. It's more of an intimate setting than that. So it's not like a one room with a whole lot of people in it, but it's actually a virtual fair with like little virtual tables, and you can sit down at one of like 20 or 30 different tables. Yeah. And just have little conversations with like 4 or 5 people, and it feels very chill and not overwhelming like a big Zoom call. And, so those are fun for like networking and meeting people, from promoting their businesses or organizations and things like that. I invite some organizations who can just provide fun activities for them to do at the different tables. And then one of the most fun parts of those fairs is that we have one time where everyone's kind of watching the main stage. So we're all doing something together instead of everybody hanging out at the virtual tables. And that's when we have our speakers contribute to the events. So I invite young entrepreneurs who are like really experienced, really impressive. Like you might have heard of, and I hope some of these names are like not too American focused. I know your audience is, you know, kind of from the UK, but
US as well.
Okay, good. All right. So Gabby Bowes, you may know the name of that business, but Gabby Goodwin, she like invented these new hair barrettes when she was like 8, and now she's like 14 or 15 and selling in Target and, you know, all these places. You know, celebrity teen baker, Chef Simone, who was on the Steve Harvey show, and, you know, like she's done all kinds of amazing things. So kids like that, I invite them to participate so that they can kind of share their wisdom because they're a little further down the road than a lot of the kids that I come across. So I create these panel discussions where they can talk about a topic that I know a lot of my followers are interested in. And I know these more experienced young entrepreneurs can really contribute a lot of gems and value that these other kids are just going to, you know, soak up. And that's a really amazing part of the fairs because all of these kids get to feel like they met Gabby from Gabby Bowes and they met you know, Kavanaugh from Cool Dope Living. Right after our last event, Kavanaugh, who was there, was in Highlights magazine. And in the United States, a lot of kids read Highlights magazine. And the kids were like sending me messages on Instagram. That kid that was at your event, he's in this magazine. Did you know he's in the magazine? He's famous. And I was like, I know he's famous, but apparently they didn't know that he was famous.
Okay.
So to them, you know, he was just a cool kid that they met. And they're like, whoa, this kid is like really impressive. So, I mean, I really try to invite, you know, some guests of that caliber because that is super inspirational for this community.
So it sounds amazing. I love the fact that you can have, you know, depending on what subject is being discussed, kids can go to their preferred room to have their preferred meeting because it's got to be, that's amazing. So you've got your own, it's like being in a big building. And, you know, like if you were in a big bit, like when you was at Def Jam, you probably saw Jay-Z in an office there and he might have some people having a meeting. Then you've got Murder Inc. down the road and it's almost the same thing, but it's virtual.
Yes, exactly. And it's so fun. The kids love it so much. They actually gave it a nickname. They call it virtual reality parties. Now it's not really virtual reality, but they just think it's really cool. So they call it virtual reality.
Yeah. And just going back to that, I know that we discussed this before, that actually business can go on at these events. So you can, so it's an opportunity for kids to sort of talk about their product and maybe make some sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, you know, there are definitely some tables reserved for like a young entrepreneurs market. And, you know, any kid or teen who has a business and wants to promote it can have one of these tables. And we keep the fee really reasonable so that these kids can participate, even if they've just started their business. And the way the platform works, you know, everyone has, you know, like a little avatar. And if you hover your mouse over the avatar, you can see their links to their website or links to book an appointment with them and things like that. So as they're talking to people at the table, they can easily direct people to click that link and go check out their website, or they can show a product and say, oh, if you're looking for this one, there's only 4 left on the website. You might want to go purchase it now, you know, things like that. Or if they're building an email list or whatever it is that they're trying to do, you know, this space really gives them the flexibility to do that. And I meet with them beforehand to kind of talk about a game plan for how they can make this event work for them and their business.
Okay, sounds fabulous. And so I'm just fascinated with this event. So when is the next event?
So the next one is scheduled for, we're planning to do one in April. The tentative date right now is April 10th. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay, well, we can keep me posted on that and I can add that
Absolutely.
to the show notes. So obviously you're based in the States.
Yes.
And so in terms of a couple of questions, one, in terms of age group, the kids that primary members, what's the age range?
So I don't set an age range other than you have to be under 18, right? That's the only requirement that I have. On the low end, I don't set a limit. So far, we've had kids as young as 5. and let me tell you, these 5-year-olds will blow your mind, Paul. They are amazing. Okay. In fact, we have a 5-year-old. I don't think he had a birthday yet. I think he's still 5. We have a 5-year-old joining us on Instagram Live in a couple of weeks on February 8th. Okay. And he's going to teach us how to make glow-in-the-dark bath salts. So he makes soap, handmade bath bombs, handmade bath salts, and candles. Yeah. And one of the bath salts that he sold at our previous event was glow in the dark. And I thought that was super cool. So I told him, I was like, why don't you teach us how to make that? And I also thought that showing us how to make this glow in the dark thing would probably inspire some other kids to do other glow in the dark type things, even if they don't make the exact same thing that he makes, which is again, like the beauty of this community, that they can inspire each other to, you know, not just copycat each other, but just to actually take an idea and do something new and different with it. So, you know, we're going to do that in a couple of weeks, and he is hilarious. I mean, he cracks me up every time we meet. And he's like, he knows how to make all of these things so well that when I asked him about making the candles, just, you know, for like maybe a later interview, he literally in like maybe 60 seconds, he told me the entire process of making candles from beginning to end without stopping. I don't even think he took a breath. He knows the process that well at 5 years old because he's just done it so many times. I was blown away. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that these kids become, whatever their area of interest is, they become experts at it.
Yes, exactly.
I've got this image of you know, kids that are part of your network coming downstairs in the morning at 5 years old with briefcases, putting it on the table, putting their lunch, which would be,
I know, you know, a little coffee before. Yeah. Actually, here's a hilarious and true image about these kids. Yeah. So the one I just told you about, his name is Hunter. His business is Leather and Lather Shop. And one thing he told me when we were prepping for his interview, he was like, Patricia, guess what? A little while ago, it was late at night and my parents thought I was sleeping. So I snuck out of my room at 10 o'clock at night. He's 5 years old. At 10 o'clock at night because I wanted to make more soap and I had some bath bombs that still needed to be painted. And his mom was just off camera and she stuck her head in and was like, yeah, he really did that. It wasn't good. But like, that's how passionate these kids are about their businesses. They will sacrifice sleep because it's really important to them. And I love that.
Well, it's incredible when you think about, because they're like young adults.
They kind of are.
In terms of what they're doing, because it's entrepreneurial, there's a goal, there's development, and you know, it's incredible to listen to. And it must be incredible for you to see growth from the moment that a child enters the group, and then I'm sure individually you'll see different evolution and different development with these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think any educator can definitely relate to that, or even just a parent. You know, you watch your own kids and you watch how they change and they grow, and you know, they pick up on new things that they didn't used to pick up on before. It's like, it's kind of amazing to watch that process happen with especially with, you know, such a little person. But it feels really good to watch them kind of grow and develop as entrepreneurs and figure out, you know, how do I make my business more efficient? How do I pivot my business now that, you know, the pandemic has hit and I can't go to pop-up shops like I used to do? I mean, this is what these kids are dealing with. All these kids had to figure out how to operate their businesses during a pandemic. That's a real adult problem.
What's making me laugh as well, you can think about these kids when because obviously they're kids now. Someone at 5, when he finishes university, if he does that and he goes for a job with, you know, who say Apple, and they say, you know, kind of like, you know, what's your what are you looking to do? What's your experience? Well, I started my first company at the age of 5. I pivoted. I pivoted. The pandemic struck, so I had to think quickly, agile, and I pivoted the business, sort of, you know, quadrupled revenue growth. Then 2 years later, I set up and the interviewers probably think, maybe you should have my job.
Exactly. And, Paul, here's the funny part about that question, because I think about these kids and like where they might be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I'm kind of curious, like, of all these kids, are most of them going to end up being an employee? Or are these kids really like gonna become lifelong serial entrepreneurs? I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's a really interesting one to kind of see of this type of child. Where do they end up in 10 and 20 years? So I just can't wait to find out the answer.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, because the job market is obviously these guys are very, very young, so things can change and they can come back to where they are sort of pre-pandemic, but the job market has changed. I think the entrepreneur and that way of life, and I think it's becoming more important, because traditional employers, I think they're under strain a little bit more, and it's difficult to give people that long-term job security that maybe existed a few years ago, and certainly since the pandemic has struck. So the skills that you're giving these guys now, I just think it's so timely, because the job market, by the time of these guys get to work, we don't know what that's going to look like. So the more skills that kids, because you're kind of doing a job that maybe schools don't know how to do it, and colleges don't know how to do what you're doing, because they're too ingrained in a different system.
Yeah, there's definitely like, I do think that if schools wanted to do more of what, kind of the things like I do with these kids, I think it's possible. I really do, because I actually used to teach entrepreneurship in a school.
Okay.
I used to do this in a middle school. It was a Montessori school, so they have a certain, educational philosophy, but, it can be done in a school, but it really requires you to think very differently about what it is for kids to be learning. And, what does it look like? Like, is it sitting at desks with a book? Is it sitting at a table listening to an adult? Or can learning look very different from that? Because what we do is very different from that.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe you only need one or two to pick up the baton and run with it, and then it becomes less of a stretch in terms of teachers and systems headspace. Always at the start, it's always a stretch, because people revert to what they know. So
exactly.
I asked you a second ago, and I lost my train of thought. Obviously, you're in the States, so a lot of the kids that are part of the network are in the States. But can any child from any part of the world get involved in this? Is it something that's open to the masses?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my main goals in 2021 is to really expand this group to include kids beyond the United States and Canada. That was our main focus previously, because the events that we did were very much tied to them selling things, and then they had to mail them to people. So mailing overseas kind of presented, more challenges than I was ready to deal with at that point in time. But now that the events are a little different, it actually lends itself very easily to kind of expanding this to make it more international. And I know that the kids in this group want to connect with kids from all over the place.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I'm doing this year is those big virtual fairs that I'm doing. I'm scheduling them so that it's really accommodating for as many time zones as possible. So, people in the UK should be absolutely no problem for them to participate. South America, we're hoping to get some, contingent from there. Maybe even Asia, that's a huge time difference, but maybe we'll get a couple kids from there also. And, beyond the virtual fairs, just kind of the smaller things that we do, like the Instagram live interviews and the contests, those are definitely open to, anybody who's interested in participating. In March, we actually have a guest who's joining us from India.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, she's an 8-year-old. Her name is Chef Smara on Instagram. She's super adorable, and her cakes are unbelievable. Like, if you watch some of her like time-lapse videos of her like decorating these amazing cakes, oh, she has skills, and
Okay.
she's going to come and she's going to teach us some of what she does. So we're going to bake a little something, and she's going to show us a little cake decorating. But, you know, I mean, all the way from India. So we're just going to have to time it, you know,
Yeah.
so that it's convenient for her and convenient for our audience. But yeah, definitely any country, you are more than welcome to absorb as much information as you can from this community and participate and contribute as much as you want as well, because that's what this community is about. It's a give and take.
Okay, wonderful. So kids, parents watching this, listening to this, they want to get involved, no matter where they are, it's open to them, and they can contact you. I guess that will be Instagram.
Yeah, so for social media, Instagram is definitely the best place to find us. The Instagram handle is Dream Chasers Club. And the backup place that I would send you to is the website.
Okay.
My website is teachentrepreneurshipforkids.com. And the last place I'll send you to is our YouTube channel, because the YouTube channel is the place where if you just love to watch the interviews of young people talking about their dreams and amazing things that they've done and, you know, things that they hope to do in the future, the YouTube channel is where you want to go.
Okay.
So it's actually listed under my name, Patricia Clahar, but I'll give you that link so you can include it in the show notes.
Perfect. Yeah. So get all that. I'll put that in the show notes. And I was thinking as well, maybe there's people in Scotland that can get involved in the Highlands that if they want to bring, you know where I'm going with this one.
Yes, and I love where you're going. Yeah. I love it.
That has to happen. That has to happen. So when that happens, you have to ping me and say, Paul, it's happened.
Absolutely. Okay, so actually I'm gonna put out a challenge.
Yes.
If there is anybody listening who is a Scottish dancer and you want to come on Instagram Live and teach us a little Scottish dance, because I can do it.
Okay,
I can Scottish dance. Okay. I'm a little rusty, but I know I can pick it up again. I challenge you to come and join us and teach us a dance.
Okay. Fortunately, I can't do the Highland competitive dancing, so I have to rule myself out. I'm not the right age group anyway, so that's a relief. But yeah, we have to find somebody.
Definitely.
They have to, even so, if somebody has got the skills, if a kid has got the skills, but they happen to be outside Scotland, can they enter the challenge?
Yes, doesn't matter where you're from, because I learned Scottish dancing and I am not from Scotland at all. So it doesn't matter where you are. We can just bond over Scottish dancing. Okay,
we need to find someone then. Okay, that has to happen. And I wanted to ask you, this is a random question. Mm-hmm. So I was on Instagram earlier and I was watching your magic trick. That was brilliant. So
did you like it?
So I was thinking, I had a couple of things. So I thought to myself, I wonder if Patricia can do the Rubik's Cube.
No, she cannot.
Okay. And so everyone's thinking, what are we talking about? So you've got this sort of, it's not a Rubik's Cube, but it's a type thing, looks like that. And then you sort of, you put a t-shirt, you actually do it, you put a t-shirt over it, it disappears, and then the t-shirt you've got in your hand, that suddenly becomes a t-shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
Which I thought, wow, and I'm going to be speaking to her in about an hour. She's even more amazing than I thought.
I think, I do, fun stuff like that in my videos because, I'm an educator and I know that, if you want to appeal to young people, there's certain things you kind of got to do to draw them in and to get their attention. Yeah. I do those things. They're actually called video transitions. Okay. So, if you're into that stuff, you think it's cool and you want to try it out, look up some video transitions and you'll probably find some information that'll help you with that.
Okay. Wonderful. And I've got a question I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. So if Patricia could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, who would you invite?
Oh, okay. So this one, when I looked at your list of questions, I was like, this is a hard one. I should think about this before the interview.
Okay.
All right. So I'm ready. The first person I would invite is Marseille Martin. And I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's an actor. She's in an American TV show called Blackish. But she's also known, at least in the United States, as being the youngest, I think she's the youngest producer of a Hollywood film in history.
Wow.
She produced a Hollywood film when she was like 14 or 15 or something like that. And And she's, a young Black woman. And a lot of the kids that I work with, they talk about her a
Really?
lot. And yeah, and they're like really inspired by like how young she is and the amazing things she's been able to do. And I don't know a ton about her. So I would just love to meet her more to get a little more perspective on like how they find her so inspirational and what is it that draws them to her, because they bring her up all the time and I think it's adorable and I just love to know more about her.
That could happen. We need to get this to her and that could happen.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to reach out to her this year. That's another
100%.
big goal that I have. We'll see what happens.
100%.
Okay.
Can I be your accountability co-worker on that one? Because I think you should, because I think she's going to love what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. You can check in with me like quarterly and I'll let you know what the progress is.
Quarterly.
Yeah. All right. For my second one, I have a question to ask before I answer.
Okay.
Does it have to be a person that's alive or can it be a person that's passed away?
Either or. You've got carte blanche on this.
Okay. So then for my second one, I'm going to use Mr. Rogers. Are you familiar with Mr. Rogers?
No, I'm not. Maybe I should be, but I'm not.
Well, no, maybe not. I mean, he's from an American TV show from when I was a kid. So this was like one of those, kid-focused shows, educational. It was called Mr. Rogers, and it was about him and his neighborhood. And he would kind of go around and talk to different people in the neighborhood about what their jobs are, what they did, and how it, benefited the community and things like that. And I just loved that show because Mr. Rogers in the United States is known as like one of those people who was so brilliant at captivating kids' attention and getting them to just love learning without making it like a classroom. You know what I mean? So, he just had this way of kind of like drawing you in and getting you super excited. And you learned about all these like real world practical things. It wasn't like learning about math and, learning letters and stuff. It was about learning about how your community functions and how to be a productive part of society and imagining yourself as a part of that and how you could be productive. So I always thought that was super cool. And as an educator, I would just love to pick his brain more about how he kind of developed his method for engaging with kids on TV,
I'm going to have to, it sounds like a total fit for you and what you're doing. I'm going to research him after this because I'm intrigued.
Yeah, there's actually a documentary about him. I haven't watched it myself yet. I've read some other things about him, but people have studied this guy, you know what I mean? So I thought it was really cool to think about like actually speaking to him. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Yeah. And then the third person, let's try to get at least one for three. I hope you know this name, Gary Vee.
I know Gary Vee.
Okay, perfect. You know Gary Vee. Like almost everybody knows Gary Vee at this point.
How do you not know Gary Vee, Paul?
Right. So Gary Vee is my third one. And the reason why I would love to talk to him is because he just has teenagers like eating out of the palm of his hand almost. It is incredible how he just knows exactly what to say to them. He knows exactly what they want to hear, what they need to hear, and they just eat it up. And I think it's amazing. Like, he's an inspirational guy, and I kind of like his messaging about, follow your passion and don't worry about what other people say or think about your ideas. But, I just think especially with his content and the way he's able to draw these kids in on social is so impressive. And I would just love to talk to him about that.
Yeah. He is amazing. What I love about him is he's just so honest. He just gives you honesty, whether you can deal with it at the time. He just gives you honesty, and I think that the penny does drop. It might not drop on camera all the time, but I guess away, because he just gives you honesty, and you from a distance, I see and love what he does, and he is amazing. So he'd be a phenomenal. That'd be quite a dinner party.
I just want to share this with you because his post today that I saw today really got me. He actually had a post about how one of the best things that his parents ever did for him as a kid was to let him be bad at school.
Okay.
And to let him not be a good student.
Okay.
And I have to say, as an educator, of course, it made me stop. Like, wait, what? But when you listen to his message, I mean, he really had a point. He was like, school was just not my thing. Traditional school was just not working for me. And my parents didn't force it. They didn't make me feel bad about it. They just watched me and followed me and tried to figure out what my thing was, because it obviously wasn't school. So they just tried to let me figure out whatever it was. And they gave him the space to be a bad student because it gave him the space to figure out what he was good at. At a younger age, you know, and I thought that was kind of amazing, because a lot of parents, they have so much pressure to make sure that their kids are performing in school that sometimes it's to their detriment. You know, sometimes it's not always in their best interest to force all of those things that traditional school wants you to force. And I thought that was a powerful message, even as an educator.
Yeah, massively powerful. I'm just thinking about, it'd be interesting to get his parents' take on that, who made that decision, just because, you know, just what was just that mindset is just, as you just alluded to, it's not in keeping with how most parents think. Most parents think, well, you know, you're going to have to get on with school, and you're going to have, you know, we're just going to get you some more tuition. You have to do more hours. You're going to have to work at weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. We're putting some time in. And the kids is just going, really? I'm telling you, I'm brought into this. You're giving me more tuition. What's all that about?
Right. Didn't we just see that doesn't work out well? Why are we doing more of it?
Yeah. So you definitely have to get this to him as well, and maybe that dinner party will happen. So I think we're getting towards the end now. But what I did want to ask you is, how do you know, what's your sort of dream? How do you see Dream Chasers Club evolving? What would you want that to look like?
So that's a good one, man. I got to be honest. I think because I still feel like I'm so early in this process, what I dream about is still very much on kind of a short term scale. You know, I'm not dreaming about like 5 years down the road. I'm just dreaming about getting to the end of 2021.
Okay.
You know, so like what I'm dreaming for right now is for these virtual events to really include a more international crowd. That is a huge goal for me this year. And then the second is to kind of get some other kid and family focused businesses and organizations to really see that we have something amazing here, and that this is something that they can be a part of and contribute to and help to build and grow into something awesome. Because, you know, this is, you know, it's an idea that, you know, kind of started with me, but I know that to take this to full fruition is going to take more than me. You know, so like at some point I need people to kind of be on board with like, yeah, this is awesome. How can we support this? Because I can't be the only one that's supporting all these kids, especially as it grows and grows. I'm going to need other people who can kind of help to support this community. So I think that just making the community more international and kind of getting our brand awareness out about what we do and why this community is really awesome and why kids and teens love it and why any business who wants to be in front of that audience should be here is really what I'm dreaming for in 2021.
Well, that sounds amazing. I see what you're doing as, you know, businesses. If you're, you know, part of a business and you want to have the best that is available, and you just want kids with agile minds that are able to come into a business, whether they work for you or from a consultative purpose, you're creating that. And I think from a business perspective, they can help nurture that and develop that and give you access to the tools and the sort of the awareness that you want. You know, I just think that, you know, if there's any people that are business sort of leaders or people that have got interest, they definitely should get in contact with you and see how they can maybe get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Patricia, you know what? This has been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed talking to you, connecting with you, and I'm excited to see how the journey evolves. So definitely, hopefully we can connect again, maybe the end of 2021, see how the events have gone, and see if Gary V has accepted your invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a lot of fun, Paul. I got a list of ideas that I have from you. I got Gary Vee, I got Marseille Martin I got to reach out to. I got the Breakfast Club that you suggested before.
Yes,
I got a whole list of Paul's suggestions that I got to work on.
so maybe what I should be doing is helping you achieve one of those. So maybe if I jump on board and I help you achieve one of those, I'll sort of help push that. But and obviously what we can't forget is the Highland Dancing competition. That is up there as well. We need to find somebody, listen to this, that enters a competition and you can declare a winner. Maybe we can do that on an episode.
All right, we'll work on that one.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for listening to My Perfect Failure. You can connect with me at www.myperfectfailure.com. Until the next time, take care, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.